Stop worrying is a common phrase we hear from those who have our best interest at heart. But despite their good intention, is this really sound advice? Especially considering the fact that it's biologically impossible to stop thinking. No matter the conscious effort we make, some thoughts slip through the cracks, and before we know it, we are trapped in our thoughts. So if everyone worries, then the problem isn't that we worry, but how we worry. And this got me thinking. After digging a little deeper, I came to a conclusion. Worrying isn't bad. In fact, we can use it to our advantage. Follow me as I unravel this mystery. Worry is a build-up of negative emotions or feelings that are triggered by a thought or series of thoughts. According to science, worrying stems from a psychological need for control. We all want to have control over our lives, and this becomes a problem when there is a situation that is out of our control. When this happens, our brain enters into an endless loop of thoughts, which builds up stress and dampens our performance. This, in turn, makes us even more worried. It is this vicious circle that gives worrying its negative reputation. But what if instead of trying to stop worrying, we learn to make it work in our favor? Stress and performance are known to have an inverted U relationship. What this means is that as stress levels increase, the performance also increases, but then it reaches a peak above which any increase in stress decreases performance. Simply put, worrying can actually make you more efficient, but too much of it will kill your motivation. Imagine Ben and Alex are having a very important job interview. The stakes are high, and they are worried about their chances of getting the job. Here is how the two men worried differently. After receiving news of the interview, Ben did a little research about the company, and the statistics were shocking. The company had an acceptance rate of 20%, meaning that just 2 out of every 10 applicants were likely going to be hired. Ben was overwhelmed by this information, and this discouraged him from preparing for the interview. Alex was also aware of the rigorous interview process and the low acceptance rate of the company. But he didn't worry about that. He knew his chances of getting hired were as good as anyone else's. So instead of worrying about statistics, Alex focused on doing his best by getting himself prepared for the interview. He spoke to some of the company's employees, read about the interview process online, and got himself acquainted with some likely interview questions. Comparing the two scenarios, you can quickly tell which of them is most likely going to get the job. While they were both worried about their chances of getting the job, the difference between Ben and Alex was in how they worried and what they focused on. Chronic or excessive worry is destructive and often results in depression, anxiety, and can lead to bad habits like overeating, smoking, or excessive use of drugs or alcohol. But when moderated, worry can promote positive habits like putting on your seatbelt while driving, wearing a nose mask to reduce the risk of exposure, and even preparing for a job interview like Alex did. Worry can motivate us to take action to prevent the things we are worried about from happening, and by doing so, we have less reason to be worried. Apart from being a motivator, worry can also act as an emotional buffer. The reason is that, as we all know too well when worrying, our minds have a tendency to exaggerate, and this tends to make things seem worse than they truly are. But this can work in our favor. The mental image our minds project when worrying about any situation lowers the bar of our expectation so much that if what we are trying to prevent eventually happens, our emotional state remains unaltered. On the other hand, if we are successful in avoiding the bad situation, then we enjoy double the excitement. But this all depends on our ability to moderate how much we worry and what we are focused on while worrying. If we know how to worry better, then we can actually make worry work for us instead of against us. Learning how to worry is easier said than done. But there are strategies that can help, and one of them is Stephen Covey's circles of influence and concern. The idea is simple. Our circle of influence represents all those things we are worried about that are within our control, while our circle of concern represents all the things that we are worried about that are actually out of our control. Taking Ben and Alex as examples, Ben focused on the company's reputation and acceptance rate, both of which he could do nothing about. This type of worry is destructive in nature and demotivates us. Alex was also worried, but he focused on what he could do, like studying past interview questions and talking to employees about the interview process. These actions improved his chances of getting the job. This type of worry is preemptive in nature, and it motivates us into action. Worrying about the weather, worrying about what people think of us, or worrying about the result of a medical test all come naturally to us, but are outside of our control. These are negative worries. But things like how we use our time, where we live, and our choice of spouse are positive worries, since we have some level of influence over them. All these point to one fact. Worrying isn't the problem, but what we are worried about. If you worry about the things that are outside your circle of influence, then you become mentally paralyzed because there is nothing you can do about the situation. But if you focus on those things within your control or circle of influence, then worrying only motivates you to take action. So, when you're next worried, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, then you're better off channeling your energy towards other things.